My name is Emma, and I'm 24 years old. This is the story of how my dad and stepmom stole my college fund to pay for my stepbrother's wedding, then told me I was selfish for being upset. What they didn't know was that I had been secretly recording every conversation for months. By the time I was done, they wished they had never crossed me. If you've ever been the responsible child who got overlooked while the favorite got everything handed to them, this story is for you. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from, because what happened next will shock you. I have a story that will make your blood boil, but stick with me because the ending is so satisfying you'll want to share it with everyone you know and say. Grew up as an only child until I was 12, when my dad remarried my stepmom Linda. She came with her 17-year-old son Jake, and from day one, it was clear who the golden child was going to be. While I was expected to maintain straight A's, do chores, and work part-time jobs as soon as I turned 16, Jake could barely pass his classes and spent most of his time playing video games in his room. But here's the thing that really gets me. My dad had started a college fund for me when I was born. Every birthday, every Christmas, instead of expensive toys, my grandparents and relatives would contribute to this fund. By the time I was 18, there was nearly $40,000 saved up. I was so proud of it because I knew it represented years of sacrifice and planning for my future. My dad would always tell me, "Emma, education is the most important investment. This money is your ticket to any college you want." I believed him. I worked hard, graduated valedictorian, and got accepted to several universities. I chose a state school to be financially responsible, planning to use the fund to graduate debt-free. Meanwhile, Jake barely graduated high school and had no interest in college. Instead, he moved in with his girlfriend Madison when he was 21. They both worked minimum wage jobs and spent most of their money on partying and expensive clothes they couldn't afford. But somehow, they were never criticized for their choices, the way I was scrutinized for everything. When I was 22 and finishing my junior year of college, Jake announced he was going to propose to Madison. Suddenly, the house was buzzing with wedding excitement. Linda was over the moon, already planning this elaborate celebration. She kept saying things like, "This will be the wedding of the year, and nothing is too good for my son." I remember sitting at dinner one night when Linda started talking about venues. The country club wants $8,000 just for the reception hall. She sighed dramatically. And that's not even including catering or flowers. My dad nodded sympathetically. "Don't worry, honey. We'll figure it out. Jake deserves a beautiful wedding." I almost choked on my food. Jake deserved a beautiful wedding? I had been working 2 part-time jobs while maintaining a 3.8 GPA, and I couldn't even get my dad to help me with textbook costs because it would teach me responsibility. But Jake, who had never held a job for more than 6 months, deserved an $8,000 wedding venue? That's when I should have seen it coming. That's when I should have protected what was mine. Over the next few weeks, I noticed my dad and Linda having hushed conversations that would stop whenever I entered the room. Linda kept making comments about how family comes first and how we all need to make sacrifices for the people we love. She'd look directly at me when she said these things, and I was starting to get a sick feeling in my stomach. 3 months before my senior year was supposed to start, my dad asked me to sit down for a family meeting. Jake and Madison were there, along with Linda, all of them looking way too comfortable for what was about to happen. "Emma," my dad started, "we need to talk about your college situation." My college situation? I was 3 months away from graduating debt-free, thanks to the fund he had promised me since childhood. "What situation?" "The thing is," Linda jumped in, "Jake and Madison have found their dream venue, but they need the money by next month or they'll lose the date." I stared at them, not understanding where this was going. "We've all been talking," my dad continued, "and we think it would be best if you took out student loans for your senior year. It's only 1 year, and the interest rates aren't that bad. The why room started spinning. What are you saying? We're saying, Linda said with that fake sweet voice of hers, that family helps family, and right now, Jake needs help more than you do. But that was just the beginning of the nightmare I was about to live through. I sat there staring at the three of them, my brain trying to process what I was hearing. You want me to take out loans so Jake can have a wedding? It's not just any wedding, Madison piped up for the first time. It's our dream wedding. We've been planning this for months. And I've been planning for college since I was born. I snapped back. That money was specifically saved for my education. My dad held up his hand like I was being unreasonable. Emma, you're being dramatic. It's just 1 year of loans. You'll pay them off quickly with your degree. Dramatic? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dad, you've been telling me my entire life that this money was sacred, that education was the most important investment. Now you want to spend it on a party? Linda's mask slipped for just a second, and I saw the real her. It's not just a party, Emma. It's the start of their married life together. Some things are more important than school. More important than school. The woman who had never gone to college herself was telling me that a wedding was more important than my education. Besides, Jake added, you're already almost done. What's 1 more year of debt? 1 more year of debt, like it was nothing. Like the $25,000 they wanted to steal from me was just pocket change. I looked at my dad, hoping to see some sign that he knew this was wrong. Instead, he was nodding along. Jake makes a good point, sweetheart. You're so responsible with money, you'll have those loans paid off in no time. That's when it hit me. I was being punished for being responsible, because I had always been the good kid, the one who never caused problems. They thought they could just take from me and I'd accept it quietly. What if I say no? I asked. The temperature in the room dropped about 10 degrees. Linda's fake smile disappeared completely. Well, my dad said slowly, I suppose that's your choice. But Emma, we're family. Family helps each other. Family helps each other, I repeated. Where was this family when I needed help with textbooks? Where was this family when I was working 2 jobs to afford groceries? That was different, Linda said sharply. That was teaching you responsibility. And this is teaching me what exactly? That if I work hard and save money, someone else will just take it? Madison rolled her eyes. God, Emma, you're being so selfish. We're not asking for much. Not asking for much. $25,000 wasn't much. I stood up from the table. I need time to think about this. There's not much time to think, Linda called after me. The venue needs an answer by Monday. I went to my room and called my mom. My parents had divorced when I was 10, and while my mom couldn't contribute much to my college fund due to her own financial struggles, she had always been supportive of my education. They want to do what? She practically shrieked into the phone. Use my college fund for Jake's wedding. Emma, honey, that money was saved specifically for you. Your grandparents, your dad's parents, they all contributed to that fund because they believed in your future. I know, Mom, but Dad says it's just 1 year of loans. Just 1 year? Emma, do you know how much student loan debt follows people around? I'm still paying off loans from nursing school, and I graduated 15 years ago. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the sacrifices that had gone into that college fund. My grandmother, who had given up her weekly hair appointments to contribute $50 a month. My dad's brother, who had skipped Christmas gifts for adults so he could put money aside for my education. Even my mom, who despite being barely able to make ends meet, had managed to contribute a few $100s over the years. All of that sacrifice so Jake could have his dream wedding. The next morning, I tried one more time to reason with my dad. I found him in his office, paying bills. "Dad, can we talk about this college fund situation?" He didn't even look up from his computer. "Emma, we've already discussed this. The decision is made." The decision is made? I don't get a say in. What happens to my college fund? It's not your college fund, Emma. It's money that your mother and I saved. We get to decide how it's used. That's when I realized something that chilled me to the bone. He kept saying your mother and I, but my mom had never agreed to any of this. He was talking about Linda like she had been there from the beginning, like she had some claim to money that was saved before she even met our family. "Mom never agreed to this," I said quietly. "Your stepmother is your mother now," he replied, still not looking at me. "And she agrees with me that family comes first." I felt something break inside my chest. 24 years of being daddy's little girl, and I was being replaced by a woman who had contributed exactly $0 to my college fund, but felt entitled to give it away. What if I refused to sign the loan paperwork? Finally, he looked at me. "Then I guess you'll figure out another way to pay for school." "But Emma, if you do this, if you put your own wants ahead of your family's needs, it's going to change things between us." There it was, the threat. Do what we want or lose your family. That's when I knew exactly what I had to do. Little did I know I was about to discover something that would change everything. That weekend, while everyone was out looking at wedding venues, I decided to do some investigating of my own. I had always been good with numbers, it's why I was majoring in accounting. And something about this whole situation wasn't adding up. If they really needed my college fund for Jake's wedding, where was all the money my dad had been making? He worked as a regional manager for a manufacturing company and made decent money. Linda worked part-time at a boutique. They should have been able to save for a wedding, especially if they'd been planning it for months like they claimed. I went into my dad's office and started looking through the bills on his desk. I know it was wrong to snoop, but they were literally stealing my future, so I figured all bets were off. What I found made my stomach drop to the floor. Credit card statements. Not just 1 or 2 cards, but 5 different cards, all maxed out. The minimum payments alone were over $800 a month. I started adding up the balances. $12,000 on one card, $15,000 on another, $8,000 on a third. The numbers kept climbing, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what they had been spending money on. Linda's boutique shopping sprees, expensive dinners out every weekend, a brand new 60-inch TV that cost more than my entire semester's, tuition, Jake's brand new gaming setup that cost $3,000, Madison's jewelry purchases. Apparently, my stepbrother had been buying his girlfriend expensive necklaces and bracelets every few months. They weren't struggling to pay for a wedding. They were drowning in debt from their own irresponsible spending. And they wanted to use my college fund to bail themselves out. I took pictures of everything with my phone. Every credit card statement, every receipt, every bill. I was shaking with anger, but I forced myself to be methodical. If I was going to fight this, I needed evidence. Then I found something that made everything even worse. A folder labeled Emma College Fund tucked behind some other papers. Inside were all the original deposit slips, contribution records, and account statements going back to when I was born. My hands were trembling as I read through them. The account currently had $42,863. But according to the contribution records, there should have been over $55,000. They had already been taking money from my college fund. I cross-referenced the withdrawal dates with Linda's credit card statements, and there it was. $3,000 withdrawn in January, the same month Linda bought that designer handbag she'd been bragging about. $2,000 withdrawn in March, right when Jake got his new gaming computer. Another $1,500 in April. Madison's birthday shopping spree. They had been stealing from me for over a year, and now they wanted to take what was left for the wedding. I sat in that office chair, staring at the evidence of their betrayal, and something inside me just snapped. These people had been playing happy family while systematically robbing me blind, and they had the nerve to call me selfish for not wanting to hand over what remained of my future. That's when I heard them coming back home, laughing and talking about centerpieces and flowers. I quickly put everything back exactly where I found it and went to my room, but my mind was racing. I needed more than just financial evidence. I needed them to admit what they were doing, so I started recording our conversations. I know it sounds extreme, but I had to protect myself. Every time Linda made one of her comments about family sacrifice or my dad talked about being reasonable, I had my phone recording in my pocket. I documented every manipulation, every guilt trip, every threat. The next family meeting happened 3 days later. This time, I came prepared. "Emma," my dad started, "we need your decision about the college fund." Before I decide anything, I said, "I want to see the actual numbers. How much does this wedding cost, and why can't you afford it yourselves?" Linda's eyes narrowed. "That's really none of your business." "It's absolutely my business if you want to use my money to pay for it." Jake jumped in. "Look, Emma, we found the perfect venue, but we need to put down a deposit this week or we lose it." "How much is the deposit?" $25,000, Madison said quietly. $25,000 for a deposit at a venue they probably couldn't afford the monthly payments on. "And how much is the total wedding budget?" I pressed. They all looked at each other uncomfortably. "The total budget isn't really the point," my dad said. "The point is that we need your help right now." "The point," I said, "is that you're asking me to take on debt so you can throw a party you can't afford." "It's not a party," Linda snapped, and there was the real her again. "It's my son's wedding and he deserves the best. And I deserve the education I've been working toward my entire life." "You can get an education anywhere," she shot back. "Jake only gets one wedding day." That's when my dad surprised me. Instead of defending me or trying to mediate, he sided with her completely. "Emma, I'm disappointed in you. I raised you to be generous and family-oriented. This selfishness isn't like you." Selfishness. I was being selfish for wanting to keep money that had been saved specifically for me since birth. "Dad," I said quietly, "what would Grandma say if she knew you were using her contributions to pay for Jake's wedding instead of my education?" His face went white. My grandmother had been very clear that every dollar she gave was specifically for my college education. She had died 2 years earlier, but she had made my dad promise to use that money only for my schooling. "That's different," he said, but his voice was shaky. "Grandma would understand that family comes first." "Family comes first," I repeated. "Then why am I the only one being asked to sacrifice?" That's when Jake said something that I'll never forget. "Because you're the one with options, Emma. I need this wedding to start my life. You'll figure out college either way." I had options. I would figure it out either way. Like my entire future was just some minor inconvenience compared to his party. That's when I realized the truth hit me like a lightning bolt, and I knew exactly what I had to do. After that meeting, I went back to my room and made a decision. That would change everything. They wanted to play games with my future? Fine. But they had no idea who they were messing with. I had always been the quiet, responsible one. The peacekeeper. The one who never caused trouble. But 4 years of accounting courses had taught me a few things about money, legal documents, and exactly what constitutes financial fraud. First, I did something I should have done years ago. I called the bank where my college fund was held and asked about the account details. What I learned made my blood boil even more. The account was set up as a custodial account with my dad as the custodian and me as the beneficiary. However, there was a specific clause that most people don't know about. When the beneficiary turns 18, they can petition to take control of the account, especially if there's evidence that the custodian is misusing the funds. I was 24. I could have taken control of that account 6 years ago, but nobody had ever told me. I made an appointment with a lawyer who offered free consultations for students. Her name was Patricia Chen, and when I showed her my evidence, the withdrawal, records, the credit card statements, the recordings of my family's conversations, her expression grew darker and darker. "Emma," she said finally, "what your father and stepmother have done is called conversion. They've been taking money that was designated for a specific purpose and using it for their own benefit. The fact that they're now trying to pressure you into giving up the remainder could constitute financial coercion. What can I do about it?" Several things. First, you can file a petition to take immediate control of the account. Given the evidence of misuse, any judge would grant that request. Second, you can potentially recover the money they've already taken. Third, you can make sure they can't access another penny. I felt a surge of power I had never experienced before. For the first time in months, I wasn't helpless. But Patricia warned me about something else. "Emma, if you do this, there's no going back. Your relationship with your father and stepfamily will likely be permanently damaged. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about my grandmother who had saved every spare dollar for my education. I thought about my mom, still paying off student loans 15 years later. I thought about myself, working 2 jobs while maintaining a 3.8 GPA, all so I could graduate debt-free like my dad had promised. "Yes," I said, "I'm prepared." The legal process took 2 weeks. During that time, I had to pretend everything was normal at home while secretly preparing for war. I continued recording conversations, documented every guilt trip and manipulation attempt, and gathered more evidence of their financial irresponsibility. Linda kept making passive-aggressive comments about ungrateful children and family loyalty. Jake and Madison started planning their wedding as if my money was already theirs, showing me pictures of flowers and asking my opinion on color schemes. The audacity was unbelievable. My dad pulled me aside several times to check in on my decision. Each conversation was the same pattern: guilt about disappointing the family, reminders of how easy student loans would be for me, and subtle threats about what would happen to our relationship if I didn't comply. "Emma, I've been thinking," he said during one of these talks. "Maybe we can compromise. What if we only use half of your college fund for the wedding? You could take smaller loans that way." Only half. Like he was doing me a favor by stealing $20,000 instead of $40,000. "I'll think about it," I told him, knowing that in 3 days he wouldn't have access to steal a single penny. The day before my court hearing, I did something that felt incredibly satisfying. I went to the venue where Jake and Madison wanted to have their wedding and asked to speak with the event coordinator. "Hi," I told her. "I believe my stepbrother Jake Richardson is planning to book this venue for a wedding?" "Oh yes," she said excitedly. "Beautiful choice. Are you part of the wedding party?" Actually, I wanted to check on the payment schedule. See, they're planning to use money that doesn't actually belong to them, and I wanted to make sure you knew that any checks they write might bounce. Her smile faded quickly. "I'm sorry. What?" "The money they're planning to use for the deposit belongs to me. It's my college fund. And as of tomorrow, they won't have access to it anymore." I left her my contact information and suggested she might want to require certified funds before holding any dates. On the morning of my court hearing, I sat in that courthouse feeling nervous but determined. Patricia had prepared all the paperwork, and the evidence was overwhelming. The judge looked through the withdrawal records, listened to portions of my recorded conversations, and reviewed the original terms of the college fund. "Miss Richardson," he said, "it's clear that your custodian has violated the intended purpose of this account. I'm granting your petition for immediate control. Furthermore, I'm ordering a full accounting of all withdrawals made without your knowledge or consent. Just like that, the money was mine. Legally, officially, completely mine. But I wasn't done yet. I went straight from the courthouse to the bank and transferred every penny of my college fund to a new account that only I could access. Then I opened a safety deposit box and stored copies of all my evidence just in case they tried to retaliate somehow. My phone was buzzing constantly. The venue had apparently called my dad to discuss the payment concerns I had raised. Jake was furious. Linda was having what my dad described as a complete meltdown. I ignored all the calls and texts. I had one more stop to make. I drove to my mom's house, and showed her everything. The legal documents, the evidence, the court order. She cried when she saw how much money they had already stolen from me. "Emma, I'm so proud of you," she said. "I know this wasn't easy, but you stood up for yourself. Your grandmother would be so proud." That night, I finally went home. I knew there was going to be a confrontation, but I was ready for it. What I wasn't ready for was just how ugly they were about to get. The moment had come to face them with the truth, and their reaction was about to show me exactly who these people really were. I walked into the house at exactly 6 p.m., right when I knew everyone would be home for dinner. The silence hit me immediately. They were all in the kitchen, and I could feel the tension from the hallway. Linda was the first to see me. Well, look who decided to come home." My dad stood up from the table, his face redder than I'd ever seen it. "Emma, we need to talk. Now." Jake and Madison were there too, both of them glaring at me like I had personally ruined their lives. I guess in their minds I had. "Sure, Dad. Let's talk." "What the hell did you do?" Linda exploded before my dad could say anything. "The venue called us today saying there were concerns about payment. What did you tell them?" I pulled out my phone and set it on the table, making sure the recording app was clearly visible. I told them the truth, that the money you were planning to use belongs to me, and you wouldn't have access to it much longer. "Belongs to you?" My dad's voice was dangerously quiet. "That money was saved by your family for your family's benefit." "No, Dad. That money was saved specifically for my education, by people who trusted you to use it for that purpose." I pulled out the court documents and placed them on the table. Which is why I petitioned the court to take control of my college fund. As of this morning, that account belongs entirely to me. The silence that followed was deafening. Jake was the first to speak. "You went to court? Against your own family?" "I went to court to protect myself from thieves." Linda shot up from her chair so fast it fell backward. "Thieves? We're thieves now? What would you call people who take money that doesn't belong to them?" I looked directly at her. "Because I have the bank records, Linda. Every withdrawal. Every time you use my college fund to pay for your shopping sprees, Jake's toys, Madison's jewelry." My dad's face went white. "You went through my private papers? You went through my private bank account." I pulled out my phone and played one of the recordings. It was from last week's family meeting, crystal clear audio of Linda saying, "It's my son's wedding, and he deserves the best." "You recorded us?" Madison's voice was barely a whisper. "I documented evidence of financial coercion and fraud, which, by the way, is completely legal in this state as long as one party to the conversation consents." Jake stood up, his fists clenched. "Emma, you're destroying our family over money." "I'm protecting myself from people who were destroying my future." I stayed calm, which seemed to make them even angrier. "Tell me, Jake, how exactly is it destroying the family when I want to keep money that was saved for me?" "But it's not destroying the family when you take that money for your party." "It's not a party," Linda screamed. "It's a wedding. It's the most important day of his life. And my education is the most important investment of mine. But somehow, your party matters more than my future." My dad finally found his voice again. Emma, you have no idea what you've done. That money could have been replaced. Your relationship with this family can't be. You're right, Dad. It can't be replaced. Which is why it's so important that you understand something. I looked around the table at all of them. I know about all of it. The credit cards you've maxed out, the debt you've been hiding, the money you've already stolen from my fund to pay for your irresponsible spending. Linda's face went from red to pale in seconds. I know that you're not struggling to pay for a wedding. You're drowning in debt from buying things you can't afford, and you thought you could use my college fund as your personal bailout? I pulled out printed copies of the credit card statements. $12,000 at Nordstrom, Linda. $15,000 at electronics stores, Jake. $8,000 on jewelry, Madison. All while telling me I was selfish for wanting to keep money that was saved for my education. Jake tried one more manipulation tactic. Emma, I thought you loved me. I thought we were siblings. I did love you, Jake. But siblings don't steal from each other. Siblings don't guilt each other into giving up their futures for a party. Stop calling it a party! Madison finally exploded. This is our wedding, the most important day of our lives. Then maybe you should have saved for it instead of expecting someone else to pay for it. My dad slammed his hand on the table. Enough. Emma, you're going to march back to that bank tomorrow and reverse whatever legal nonsense you pulled. That money belongs to this family. No, Dad. That money belongs to me. Legally, officially, and morally. And there's nothing you can do about it. There's plenty I can do about it, he said, his voice turning cold. You want to act like you're not part of this family? Fine. You can find somewhere else to live. There it was, the final threat, the ultimate manipulation. Are you kicking me out because I won't let you steal my college fund? I'm kicking you out because you've chosen money over family. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. After months of gaslighting and manipulation, the absurdity of that statement just broke something loose in me. I chose money over family? Dad, you literally chose Jake's party over my education. You chose Linda's shopping addiction over my future. You chose to break a promise you made to your own mother on her deathbed, rather than tell your stepson to plan a wedding he could actually afford. My dad's face crumpled at the mention of his mother, but Linda wasn't done fighting. You ungrateful little bitch, she snarled. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Everything you've done for me? I stood up, finally, letting my anger show. Linda, you've been stealing from me for over a year. You've manipulated every conversation to make me feel guilty for wanting to keep my own money. You've tried to sabotage my education so your son can have a party. What exactly have you done for me? I've been a mother to you. No, you've been a thief and a manipulator, and honestly, a pretty terrible stepmother. Jake tried to jump in again. Emma, please, can't we work something out? Maybe we could do a smaller wedding and you could just lend us... No, I cut him off. Jake, I'm done. I'm done being the responsible one who gets punished for being responsible. I'm done being the reliable one who everyone takes advantage of. I'm done setting myself on fire to keep other people warm. I picked up my court documents and my phone. The college fund is mine. It was always supposed to be mine. The fact that you all feel entitled to money that was never yours just proves that I made the right decision. Madison started crying. Emma, you're ruining everything. No, Madison. You all ruined everything when you decided my future was worth less than your party. I headed toward the stairs to pack my things, but my dad's final words stopped me cold. If you walk out that door, Emma, don't ever come back. You'll be dead to this family. I turned around and looked at him, really looked at him. This man who had raised me, who had promised to protect my future, who was now willing to disown me for refusing to fund his stepson's wedding. Dad, I said quietly. This family died the day you decided Jake's wants were more important than my needs. What happened next would change everything, and their reaction showed me exactly who they really were. I packed my belongings that night and moved in with my mom temporarily. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of consequences that I watched unfold with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. The venue, spooked by my warning about payment issues, had demanded certified funds for the deposit. When my dad couldn't provide them, since the college fund was now legally mine and their credit cards were maxed out, they lost the booking. The venue kept their small initial deposit as a cancellation fee. Jake and Madison had to scramble to find a new location they could actually afford. They ended up booking the community center where my high school used to hold dances. The rental fee was $300 instead of $8,000, which was about all their budget could handle, but the real karma was just beginning. Linda's boutique job? She got fired. Apparently, when you're constantly stressed about money and taking it out on customers, retail management notices, without her income, they couldn't make their minimum credit card payments anymore. Jake, who had never held a steady job, suddenly found himself under pressure to become the primary breadwinner for his upcoming marriage. Madison, who had been planning to quit her job after the wedding to focus on being a wife, suddenly realized she couldn't afford that luxury. My dad tried calling me several times, but I didn't answer. He left voicemails that ranged from angry demands that I fix this mess to guilt-laden speeches about family loyalty. I saved every single one. 3 weeks after I moved out, my mom got a call from my dad. He wanted to know if I would be reasonable and at least help with a smaller wedding. She told him exactly what she thought of his request, in language that would make a sailor blush. The best part came when Linda tried to return some of her expensive purchases to pay for wedding expenses. Most of the high-end stores have strict return policies, and after 90 days, you're stuck with your impulse buys. Thousands of dollars worth of designer handbags and jewelry that she couldn't afford in the first place became expensive reminders of her poor financial decisions. Meanwhile, I was thriving. Without the constant stress of their manipulation and demands, my grades actually improved. I finished my senior year with a 3.9 GPA and graduated summa cum laude. The remaining money in my college fund was more than enough to cover my final semester, and I even had some left over for graduate school applications. I got a job offer from a prestigious accounting firm before I even graduated. The starting salary was more than my dad made after 20 years in his company. I accepted immediately and found a beautiful apartment downtown that I could afford without needing roommates or co-signers. 6 months after the confrontation, I ran into Madison at the grocery store. She looked exhausted and was clipping coupons, something I never thought I'd see from someone who used to spend hundreds of dollars on jewelry without thinking twice. "Emma," she said awkwardly. "Hi." "Hi, Madison. How's married life?" She looked like she was about to cry. "It's fine. Different than I expected." "How so?" "Well, turns out when you can't afford the wedding you wanted, you also can't afford the lifestyle you plan to have afterward." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Madison, you guys spent years living beyond your means and expecting other people to bail you out. This is just reality catching up." She nodded miserably. "Jake's working 2 jobs now just to pay rent. And Linda, she's been really depressed since everything happened." "What about my dad?" "He's been different. Angry. All the time. He keeps saying you destroyed the family over money." I shook my head. "Madison, I didn't destroy anything. I protected myself from people who were willing to sacrifice my future for their party. There's a difference." As I walked away from that conversation, I realized something important. I didn't feel guilty anymore. For months, they had made me question whether I was being selfish, whether family should come first, whether I was wrong to want to keep money that was rightfully mine. But seeing the natural consequences of their choices, the financial reality they couldn't escape, the lifestyle they couldn't maintain, the debt they couldn't ignore, proved that I had made the right decision. The wedding, when it finally happened, was everything they deserved. A community center decorated with dollar store decorations, a potluck reception where guests brought their own food, and a cake from the grocery store bakery. It wasn't the dream wedding they had planned, but it was the wedding they could afford. I heard about it through my mom, who got the details from a mutual friend. Apparently, Linda spent the entire reception complaining about how different things would have been if only Emma had been more generous. Even at her son's wedding, she was blaming me for the consequences of her own choices. The best part of the justice? I didn't have to do anything dramatic or vengeful. I just protected what was mine and let their own decisions catch up with them. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to enable someone's irresponsible behavior. But the story doesn't end there. About 8 months after I moved out, something happened that I never saw coming. My dad showed up at my new apartment at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in weeks. His car was old and beat up, nothing like the nice SUV he used to drive. "Emma," he said when I opened the door, "we need to talk." I almost didn't let him in. After everything that had happened, after months of silence and threats, part of me wanted to slam the door in his face, but something about how broken he looked made me step aside. He sat on my couch and just stared at his hands for the longest time. Finally, he spoke. "I lost my job last week. I felt a pang of something. Not quite sympathy, but not satisfaction either. I'm sorry to hear that. Emma, I know what I did was wrong. I know how badly I handled everything with your college fund." His voice was shaking. "But I need to ask you something, and I understand if the answer is no." Here it comes, I thought. Another request for money, another attempt to make me feel guilty for protecting myself. "I need to know if you would consider letting me move in here temporarily, just until I can get back on my feet." I stared at him. This man who had threatened to disown me, who had chosen his stepfamily over his own daughter, who had tried to steal my future, was now asking me for help. "Dad, you kicked me out of the house for refusing to give you my college fund. You told me I was dead to the family. And now you want me to rescue you?" "I know how it looks," he said quickly. "But Emma, I've lost everything. The house is in foreclosure. Linda left me last month. She said she couldn't handle the stress of being poor. Jake won't even return my calls anymore." Linda left him. Of course she did. The woman who had been so concerned about family loyalty when it meant getting access to my money had abandoned ship the moment things got rough. Where's Jake in all this? Isn't family supposed to help family? My dad's face crumpled. "Jake said I made my bed, and now I have to lie in it. He said I chose Linda and him over you, so now it's my problem to figure out." The irony was almost too perfect. The golden child who had been handed everything, who my dad had prioritized over his own daughter, had now discarded him the moment he became a liability. "Dad, do you understand why I can't help you?" "Because you hate me," he said quietly. "No. Because you taught me that family loyalty is conditional. You taught me that love comes with strings attached. You taught me that the people closest to you will sacrifice your future for their convenience if you let them." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. "For months, you made me feel guilty for wanting to protect my own money. You called me selfish for refusing to take on debt so Jake could have his dream wedding. You told me I was destroying the family by setting boundaries." I turned back to face him. "But the second you needed help, where was that family loyalty? Where was Jake's sense of obligation to help you out? Where was Linda's commitment to family sacrifice?" My dad couldn't meet my eyes. "You're right. They're not the people I thought they were." No, Dad. They're exactly the people I knew they were. You just didn't want to see it because it was easier to pressure me than to face reality about them. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Finally, I made a decision that surprised even me. I'll make you a deal. I'll help you find an affordable apartment and I'll loan you first month's rent and deposit. Not give, loan. You'll pay me back when you find work. His head shot up, hope flickering in his eyes. But, I continued, there are conditions. First, you get financial counseling. You learn to live within your means and manage money responsibly. Second, you find a job within 30 days. Any job, even if it's not what you're used to. Third, you never ask me for money again after this one time. Emma, I'm not finished. Fourth, you acknowledge what you did wrong, not just to me, but to yourself. You write down everything you did that led to this situation and you keep that list to remind yourself never to make these mistakes again. I looked at him seriously. And fifth, you understand that this help comes with no strings attached. I'm not doing this because we're family. I'm not doing this because I owe you anything. I'm doing this because I choose to, one time, as a favor to someone who used to be important to me. But this doesn't mean we have a relationship again. This doesn't mean all is forgiven. This is just me being a decent human being to someone who's down on their luck. My dad started crying. Not just tears, but deep, body-shaking sobs. Emma, I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry for everything. You were right about all of it. I was a terrible father, and I don't deserve your help. You're right, you don't deserve it. But I'm not helping you because you deserve it. I'm helping you because it's the right thing to do, and because I don't want to become the kind of person who kicks people when they're down, even when they've hurt me. That was 2 years ago. My dad found a small apartment across town and got a job at a hardware store. He's been paying me back $50 a month religiously, even though I told him he could pay less if money was tight. He sends me a text every month with the payment confirmation, and sometimes includes a brief update on his life. But he doesn't push for more contact than I'm comfortable with. He's kept every one of his promises. He went to financial counseling and learned to budget. He's been working steadily, even taking overtime when it's available. He's never asked me for another penny. And most importantly, he's never once suggested that helping him should restore our relationship or earn him forgiveness. Do I forgive him? I'm still working on that. Some days I feel like I'm getting there, and other days I remember how betrayed and abandoned I felt when he chose Jake's wedding over my education, and the anger comes flooding back. But I've learned something important. You can help someone without enabling them. You can show kindness without accepting toxic behavior. You can set boundaries while still being a decent human being. The difference between what I did for my dad and what he wanted me to do for Jake's wedding is simple. I helped him get back on his feet, not maintain an unsustainable lifestyle. I gave him tools for independence, not a bailout for irresponsible choices. I offered assistance with strings attached that would help him grow, not enable him to continue making the same mistakes. Most importantly, I helped him because I chose to, not because he manipulated me into it. 3 years have passed since that confrontation in the kitchen, and my life has become everything I dreamed it would be when I was sitting in that college fund account, watching my future being stolen from me. I'm now a senior financial analyst at one of the city's most prestigious firms, and I just finished my MBA, completely debt-free, exactly as planned. I bought a beautiful condo in the downtown area, and I'm even starting to save for a house. Every month when I make my budget, I remember how different things could have been if I had let them guilt me into giving up my education fund. But the biggest change isn't financial, it's personal. I've learned to trust my instincts about people and situations. I've learned that real love doesn't come with impossible conditions. And I've learned that protecting yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary for building the life you actually want. I've built a chosen family of friends and colleagues who respect my boundaries and celebrate my successes without trying to take credit for them or claim they deserve a piece of what I've built. These are people who would never ask me to sacrifice my future for their convenience, and who understand that true support means encouraging someone to reach their potential, not enabling their worst impulses. My relationship with my dad remains complicated but respectful. He's still paying me back, still working at the hardware store, still living within his means. We exchange holiday cards and the occasional coffee meeting, but we both understand that our relationship will never be what it once was. Some betrayals leave permanent scars, and that's okay. You can forgive someone without forgetting what they're capable of. As for Jake, Madison, and Linda, I occasionally hear updates through mutual acquaintances. Jake and Madison are still struggling financially, still living paycheck to paycheck, still making poor decisions about money. They had to move in with Madison's parents last year after being evicted from their apartment. Linda is working at a call center and living in a studio apartment. None of them ever reached out to apologize or take responsibility for their actions. Sometimes people ask me if I regret standing up for myself, especially when they hear that I'm estranged from most of my father's side of the family. The answer is always no. I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret doing it. You see, there's a difference between losing family and removing toxic people from your life. Family should lift you up, not tear you down for their own benefit. Family should celebrate your success, not resent it. Family should protect your future, not sacrifice it for their immediate wants. When I look at my life now, my career, my independence, my peace of mind, I know I made the right choice. I chose myself when no one else would. I chose my future when everyone else wanted to spend it. I chose my self-respect when others wanted me to be a doormat. And that choice led me to a life I'm genuinely proud of. Looking back on this entire journey, I want you to understand something important. This story isn't really about money. It's about respect. It's about recognizing your worth and refusing to let other people diminish it for their convenience. Every single day, someone out there is being told they're selfish for protecting their boundaries. Someone is being guilted into sacrificing their future for someone else's immediate gratification. Someone is being manipulated by people who claim to love them but only value what they can provide. If that someone is you, I want you to know that you deserve better. You deserve people who celebrate your success instead of trying to claim it. You deserve family who protects your dreams instead of spending them. You deserve relationships that build you up instead of tearing you down. The hardest part isn't standing up for yourself. It's believing you deserve to be stood up for in the first place. For years, I thought my value came from how much I could give to others, how many problems I could solve, how many sacrifices I could make. But real value comes from knowing your worth and not letting anyone convince you to accept less than you deserve. Yes, setting boundaries is difficult. Yes, some people will call you selfish when you stop letting them take advantage of you. Yes, you might lose relationships that were only based on what you could provide rather than who you are as a person. But on the other side of that difficulty is freedom, peace, and the life you actually deserve. I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where family tried to guilt you into sacrificing your future for their wants? How did you handle it? And what part of this story resonated most with you? Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. Your story matters, and I'd love to hear it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if this story inspired you to value yourself more. Because you are worth protecting, your dreams are worth fighting for, and your future is worth more than anyone else's party.